Josh Fenton. With me is Saul Kaplan, Mr. Innovation. That's the watchword of the day. Lots going on.
Air conditioning. I
Air
have two words.
Air conditioning. Cannot get it cool enough out here because there's so much hot innovation going out here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center, and maybe our friends at Deepwater could get the blades cooking a little bit better and cool it off a little bit. A few months ago when the first Go store, the unmanned Amazon retail location came out, and it was sort of pitched at, it's just a test. We're not really going to implement this, and we're just going to see what it's like and analyze a few things. Well, silly consumer who seemed to love it. The Go model is now being expanded to a larger retail environment and a second store, which is much larger. Can we put the clock on the field now? In how long will it be before there is not a single human being working at a Whole Foods in America? Is it 36 months?
Well, you said the magic words. The consumer seems to like it. So, yeah, it was one of 100 experiments that they have going on at any point in time out at Amazon. And they use all these new technologies to try to improve the customer experience. So what's better than being able to walk into a store, take what you need off the shelves, walk out of the store, and not have to worry about checking out, right? And
Price check.
Yeah,
right.
Are you kidding
Paper
me?
or plastic.
Who wouldn't want that?
Right.
Like, as a consumer, who wouldn't want that? So, of course, consumers have been flocking to these test stores. And so, go figure. They're expanding them. They're going to add more. They're going to take a bigger footprint. And they're going to keep innovating. They're going to keep trying to improve the experience. And
I'm going 36 months.
36 months until it's all gone?
36 months. That's my prediction. 36 months from, I'll even go today.
No, I mean, I've said this before. I think that they're really good with lots of different models to serve different groups of customers. There'll be some customers that'll still want, to go in and talk to somebody about the fruit and vegetables.
And they'll say, go to Eastside Marketplace because at the Whole Foods on whatever that is, Angel or Waterman, I guess it is, there's not going to be a human being in there because you're going to walk in with a special bag, you're going to fill it up, you're going to walk out, and you're going to be out of there in half the time. And
if that's what consumers want, but there'll be some consumers who won't even, like me, who I don't care if there's no cashier there.
Right.
I don't want to go in the first place.
Right.
So find another way to get me the things that I want and need, and get them where I need them.
But they've already crushed that, right? And they're already getting that bigger and faster with Prime and 2-hour delivery. I think starts shortly in Boston.
Did you see the latest thing that they're doing? This is so smart, right? They're experimenting with every kind of last mile distribution model, including saying to folks, hey, apply to become a delivery person, like an Uber, for food delivery, and we'll register you, and you'll probably have an app, and it'll be just like Uber, where somebody will need something delivered, and you'll swing by and do it. You'll pick up a few bucks on the side, and then you'll go back to doing the other stuff that you do.
I think in the Atlantic there's a first-person story about a woman who became a Prime deliverer for Amazon and did not paint the most complimentary picture of the corporate culture of
Amazon,
of being a delivery part of the infrastructure of the delivery structure of that company.
There'll be some of that too. There'll be some of that. But it is Amazon Prime Day. Listen to me like I'm a billboard. I'm a walking billboard. For Amazon. On your show today. But Amazon Prime Day is coming up.
Next Monday.
10 million Amazon Prime members, and I think
there's 100 million.
It's 100 million.
100 million Prime.
By a factor of only 10.
100 million Prime.
100 million, a base of 100 million Amazon Prime members, and I think this is going to be bigger than Black Friday. Before the holidays coming up here.
Well, they're already sending. I'm a Prime member. I'm sure you are. Already sending coupons to be utilized for $10 off or $15 off and edging it up. I'm waiting. I'm expecting even more and more incentive before buying. But
you'll have to take the day off of work just to sit there so that you can participate
take advantage
in
of
the
all
stuff
the
that comes
opportunity.
popping out
Right.
on Amazon Prime Day. Right?
And just if you don't know what it is, it's sort of, I don't know, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Golden Ticket Day. It's a whole bunch of things on wild discount. It's unpredictable. It's surprised by the moment. And, if you've got a Monday in the summer and it's raining out, it's probably the perfect day. We obviously, as a technology company, buying a lot of equipment and lots of, as affectionately say, lots of cheap pieces of plastic made in China that wire everything together. We spend thousands and thousands of dollars every year buying little things, and they're expensive.
So you'll be sitting there waiting for that modem that you need here at GoLocal.
Right. That other speaker, that other camera, that other stand, whatever it might be, accordingly.
No, we laugh about it, but this is what's happening to the shopping experience and retail, and it should be way more than obvious by now that you can't sit back and watch this.
No.
Right? You have got to play. You have got to be improving customer experience, serving different groups of customers, using these technologies. They didn't invent these technologies. They're just using them the same way anybody can use them. And so playing defense is not going to work. Building regulatory moats to try to prevent them from doing it, from serving us, the consumer,
right.
Who likes a better shopping experience, isn't going to work in the long run. And so the only thing that works is getting better faster, is innovating.
Let's talk, huge discussion in Rhode Island. Gary was just on talking about it, juxtaposing kind of the Rhode Island, and you have experience at all levels with this. The Rhode Island strategy right now is trying to create a good mousetrap incentive program to encourage Rhode Island businesses and encourage businesses from out of state to come in with a series of different rebuild and tax incentives for hiring and all these things. And Bob Whitcomb in his column this weekend pointed out sort of that old truism of Triangle Park down in North Carolina, in which and Gary appropriately said, listen, it's been a 30-year effort, but they are now living large.
Right.
You couldn't have a more successful area of the country economically. Right. They've built everything to some degree right. They've schools, they have infrastructure, but and they didn't do it overnight. They did it over 30 years
right.
of growth. They have colleges there, North Carolina and Duke. It's all kind of works together. Do we need to sort of stop and say, let's change, let's not try? It was a little bit of what Link Chafee tried to say.
Right.
Let's not. We're only going to win in the short term. We'll win in the short term. We'll win in the short. Let's try and play for a longer term game.
Well, these are not mutually exclusive ideas. We can talk in principle about the use of incentives, which are taxpayer dollars,
right.
That go to specific companies in target industries,
sure.
in order to incent them to locate, to add employees here. I'm not one of these purists who says we shouldn't have any of those incentives, that we should just...
Link Chafee was a purist.
No, some people will say
right.
just lower the overall tax rates and don't spend the money on individual incentives. The problem with that is that unless everyone else does that, unless they do that in Massachusetts or Connecticut or everywhere else, you're the one on principle, and everyone else has incentives to lure people on the margin and to lure investment on the margin. I'm for smart investment and smart incentives. And what do I mean by that? I think you should be incenting those organizations that have the potential to export products and service outside of the state, not those entities that are only selling to other Rhode Islanders, because in the end the market will support that. We don't, as taxpayers, need to incentivize that. What we do need to incent are companies to come here that create something here, not because they're just trying to sell it to Rhode Islanders because we're too small, right? But because they're trying to export that. When CVS puts its headquarters here,
right.
CVS Health, it's serving a network of 10,000 stores all over the country.
Right.
So those jobs are providing service outside.
But they didn't
the state.
put it here. Right. They kind of grew out of two brothers who started Mark Stevens,
Correct.
and and Hasbro's kind of the same. Listen, Virgin Pulse might be might be the one. Might be the one that kind of has a little homegrown, but then we used incentives, and it looks like it's all working together. But, you know, how do you build an environment in which I'm a smart guy up in Cambridge at CIC, and I go, man, I need more breathing room. I need a little relief on paying $80 rent when I grow and, you know, do my B round, and I'm going to eat up all my capital with just these heavy costs. Where else could I go? And right now, we're not on that radar screen.
Oh, and Rhode Island could play to try to peel off at the margin, right? It's a zero-sum game. They're going to grow. They're going to be in New England, but the politicians win, and we win from a tax base when we lure some of them here. This is the piece that bothers me about the use of incentives. The problem with incentives is it's one thing to use it temporarily to catalyze economic development. I will guarantee you the incentives they provide to someone going into Research Triangle Park today are not the same as the incentives they provided when they were just trying to get the park started and moving, right? What you need to do is wean yourself off of the incentives, right? Because if you keep piling incentives on top of incentives, then it becomes a subsidy and people become dependent on it, and then they're going to go to the next place because you haven't given them a strategic reason to do it, and you're going to lose in the end. So I like smart incentives for what economists call a traded economy, those organizations positioned to export, not just trade within.
Here's where I think we also missed. A lot of the incentives, you know, this is, you know, Gary talks about this and others, some for political motive, but I think it is a realistic. A lot of these things are going for construction projects. And these construction projects are great. In the short term, construction jobs are good jobs. They help fuel the economy. But where our real deficiency is per capita, we're one of the hotbeds of America in producing highly educated college graduates. We're the second worst DMA in the country in retaining our college graduates. 70% of them pack up and leave. Most of the money that's gone out in incentives, few of those dollars are building an infrastructure that are going to keep that smart kid from Brown or PC or URI or RISD here in this marketplace. Well, and that's the disconnect.
Again, by being smart about it, I never really liked incentives that were for retail, to sell stuff to Rhode Islanders, that were apartments that were going into that, adding more housing stock, or hotel rooms. I was always for using incentive dollars to create the hardest space economically to do, which is office space and commercial space. And I didn't mind when we used incentives in a smart way to make sure that we're investing not just in dollars the company took to their bottom line, but in either the people who have a tendency to stay, or the real estate. Look at that biomanufacturing facility. It's now going to turn over yet again. Right, and we could go back and look at the history of it. But here's the positive side of it. If not for the fact that we had a ready-to-use biopharmaceutical facility, I guarantee you they weren't going to come here and break ground and build one from scratch.
But we've only got about $200 or $300 million into the Alpha Beta.
The question is, how many times do we have to provide incentives for the same site, for the same location? I noticed in a lot of the releases they weren't talking specifically about the site, but I'm pretty sure that's the site. And if you've been around a long time like you and I have, you know the history of that site. But I can tell you, when I ran economic development, when that site became available, it was one of the best sales tools that we had to attract.
But Alpha Beta was the 38 studios of your era. It was the biggest faux pas.
I was after that, just like I had left before 38 Studios. Well, I inherited the building there. I inherited it.
No, it was.
Believe me, it was a huge incentive.
It was a Joe Paolino project, and it was. Listen, you know, you got to give some of these folks a break. It was an attempt to get Rhode Island in the game in biotech, and Rhode Island had zero tools to be in that space.
And when I was there, I went to the groundbreaking. You know, politicians like to take credit for the stuff that happens just when they're in office. The truth was that site was there. I was running economic development, and I got to stand and welcome Alexion, and was part of the process to bring Alexion here. Now I stand here looking back at it. Alexion's gone, and now here comes the next
Well, let me tell you, on the M4, the M6 in Ireland, we drove by an
lot of
Alexion.
pharmaceutical
There was an
companies.
Alexion plant in Ireland.
Yeah, you want to talk about using tax incentives,
Oof.
right? How did Ireland, look at the miracle that happened in Ireland was driven primarily by favorable tax conditions.
Right. But also, if you think about it, who are the employers they attracted? Apple, Microsoft, pharmaceuticals, real jobs, real wages.
Right. Any place where a company could come and realize lots and lots of income, and for
Right.
a long time they couldn't repatriate it until recently. Now all of a sudden, now they can bring the capital back if they want it.
Well, listen, no city has got more cranes going on than Dublin, Ireland
Really?
right now because of London, England leaving the EU and Brexit, that so many financial services companies, major financial services companies, are building offices in Dublin. There has to be 100 to 150 cranes across the city.
I'm excited to see it. I know you just came back. We're going to go. It will be the first time I've flown out of TF Green internationally, and so it's a direct flight right to Dublin.
Listen, I'm going to
looking forward
sound,
to it.
I mean, I'm the Chamber of Commerce for TF
you
Green
are.
and Ireland. It couldn't be easier. It couldn't be less expensive. It's cheaper to fly to Dublin, Ireland, and easier
to Philadelphia.
than to take the train to New York City.
Yeah.
And Ireland is not expensive like other parts of Europe are. It's not London. It's not Paris. It's not Switzerland.
Well, to your
where,
point that you started with, the smart use of tax incentives can be catalytic and can help transform an economy. Emphasis on smart. Right, and do you have the checks and balances around how we're using them? Because the 38 studio thing has made it almost impossible, to shape a deal that makes sense today.
Yeah.
Right, because of the bad history around 38 studios, which many of us, while we were watching the movie unfold, said, and certainly now with hindsight, you look at it and say, that was not a smart use of incentives. We had a terrible position in a very risky enterprise. We had the majority position. I mean, nobody would look at a deal like that, and would consider that a smart use of investment.
How do we transform? The governor appointed, didn't last very long, an innovation officer, right? Funded by the Alumni Association or something at Rhode Island College, one of the most bizarre constructs to fund a state position. And I don't know that he produced anything. He's cost a few $100,000, but all that being aside, how do you transform? It's not a one-person job. It's sort of like being, the ethics officer. Well, ethics ought to probably permeate all of government. Innovation should all permeate.
But just like with ethics, you still need somebody
Absolutely.
to oversee it, put the programming in place, make sure that it works. I think the same thing is true today. It won't be always, but given where we are today, I thought Richard Collado came in. First of all, I thought he was a really good guy.
Yeah.
Very smart, had national, kind of.
He had a real resume, right?
And could attract lots of interest here. They didn't set him up right, as you alluded to.
I would say dragging him in front of the bus and running out of the way was about the strongest analogy I could make.
But the thought was right.
Yeah.
Right. The person they brought in was right. Right. They didn't set it up in the right way, and then they didn't get behind it and rally behind it, and then start to show the wins both in he could have done two things. One, we've had many conversations about innovating in government itself, in government agencies, right? And we definitely need better infrastructure to drive an innovation process for that, but also to be a champion for innovation, out in the marketplace to help position Rhode Island as a unique place for innovation. Which is what we at BIF, and the reason we set up BIF in the first place when we first started, which was to try to tell this story about our strategic weapon here in Rhode Island is our size. If you focus on downstream innovation and changing these models, education, healthcare, shopping experience. We should be the first in that space. You might remember one of my failed initiatives to try to turn Rhode Island to become the first state with border-to-border broadband wireless.
Oh, right.
Which was my big pitch for, this is the 21st century highway. We could be the first, and even today
Why
we
isn't
would
that
still be
done?
the first. And in Rhode Island, it's pretty cheap to do.
Why isn't it done?
Because the players who make money by selling
They were
us
not pleased
bandwidth
with you,
were not very happy with me and the government saying maybe we could put border-to-border
That was
broadband
actually a
wireless.
really good idea.
Yeah.
Do you have to do it as government? Could somebody just do it? Google's been trying to do it in some cities.
Well,
I know Portland, Oregon.
if you're going to use private investment and
Yeah.
try to maximize return on investment, you're going to skim off the top,
Yeah.
right, to the folks who can pay a lot of money. You're not
Yeah.
going to be concerned about the part of the market, and you're not overly concerned about whether institutions can talk to each other seamlessly.
Yeah.
Like whether the ambulance that picks us up at home and brings us to the hospital, has a seamless broadband connection, so the treatment can begin right at my
Yeah.
home and move to the thing. And the same thing is true in education, but the incentives are not right. So the state had a role to play. There was also trying to get access to the places for the cell towers. So I think there was room for a public-private partnership here. And I still think there is, right? I think we're going in the wrong direction with net neutrality.
Yeah.
Like this is the 21st century highway system that can help make us innovative, both locally and nationally again. And we need to get back to that. And I always say to the politicians, a pox on both of their houses. I don't think either party wins the award here.
No, absolutely not.
For doing this.
Last but not least, you're sitting back as a good Rhode Islander, somebody who runs a business here and sees kind of the political discourse that's happening here. Maybe we're not as bad as Washington. Maybe we're a little more functional, but not a lot more functional. We just came out of a legislative session, which it's hard to see anything of any significance getting adopted, on top of a year before in which nothing got adopted. You can say that's good or bad, but there wasn't a lot of big thinking. There's not a big ideas. There's no strategic plan in healthcare. There's no strategic plan in education. We're not seeing any of those things. How does Rhode Island take advantage of the size, take advantage of the innovation opportunity, and not fall into, and I don't think we suffer from the left-right to the same extreme as what is now taking place in Washington. Washington is now 100% hamstrung on almost every issue.
Right.
We can still, it's not always pretty, but we can still build some coalitions.
Which is kind of ironic because we're hamstrung and one party controls 90%.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
But I would say, and to try to keep this out of the partisan discussion.
Yeah, that's right.
I would say that you show me any government that's 80-20, 90-10 in either way.
Yeah, sure.
Right? It used to be the other way here, and then the bloodless revolution happened and the coup and they took over.
Sure.
Right? But you show me any government that has 80-20, 90, it should be 60-40 at the widest margin. Right? And anything more than that, it's bad governance.
Yeah.
And it's not about the people. Like we keep looking at the people, and saying, these are bad people that end up going to prison. Right? The problem is the system, and the system was designed for better balance. People on committees that are forced to have a real conversation, to shape legislation, to try to shape policy, right? So,
but it's pretty rare.
Our governance model here is not a good one, right? And forget the national issues, just the stuff we do here locally. We see it every year in the General Assembly, and it's not about Mattiello. It's about anybody who sits in that chair. When you control 90% of the game and you control the entire state budget process, right? You get to decide what to do without any process, any conversation. The lobbyists have too much influence over it. It's just poor governance. The problem is, how do you get a state that tends to lean towards the Democratic side to understand that it's in our best interest to create better balance there.
Right.
Unless we're going to blow up the two-party system, and I'm sure there's some people who say we should do that, I'm not sure I see that happening anytime soon. So we're stuck. I think that gets in the way of doing what you're talking about.
Brighter no. We are blah, blah, number of days away from BIF. 14th BIF.
Yeah, 14th year.
Greatest BIF ever.
Our annual summit. It'll be the best BIF ever. I
It'll
always
be,
giggle, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
What is the, is it hashtag BIF
It's BIF
14?
2018.
2018.
We went away from the number. When we got to 13, they said,
No,
we're not doing the
right,
number.
right.
Yeah, so we went to the year. So now it's hashtag BIF 2018. And the one thing I really love is that now you can go to that hashtag and you'll start to see the traffic heat up. I mean, how many events have 2 months before, where the traffic heats up? The other thing that's beautiful about BIF 2018 is there are convenings all over the world that have those same initials for them. So right now there's the Buxton Festival, in Europe, and so we get to mingle our stream with other.
That's awesome.
It's really lovely. It's really great. So I bring you a new storyteller,
please,
to close out here. So we're friendly with Dan Pink.
Sure.
Who's a pretty famous author.
Just came out with a book.
Incredibly well-written, very interesting book. It's about timing. And
I'm reading it now.
It's really quite good. I've got a podcast with him coming out.
Oh, great.
He tells me the story about his daughter, who is a rising senior out at Stanford, who just completed a project where she traveled around the country talking to 21-year-olds, called America at 21. And she talked to several thousand 21-year-olds
Wow.
and collated all of this and created stories and testimonials and then distilled it to, if you really want to understand what 21-year-olds are thinking. And she's going to come to the summit.
Oh, great.
Which I always love having youth, on the stage.
That's great.
Always the most compelling storytellers we have. And she's going to tell us what she learned about 21-year-olds in this country. It should be really great. Really looking forward to it.
Will it be a precursor to the midterm elections? Because the big question is, here's the youth, they're empowered, they're energized, but are they actually going to show up and turn out and vote?
I expect her to talk very candidly about what she learned about how 21-year-olds everywhere in the country, she traveled all around, are thinking about that, because I think it's the big question on her mind. I'm pretty sure the week of the summit, the 13th and 14th, is right after the primary.
Yep, Tuesday's the primary.
The primary is that Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it should be an interesting week.
Absolutely.
It should be an interesting week.
As always, Saul Kaplan, thanks so much for coming in. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. A great afternoon. Small businesses at the 3 o'clock hour. The big brains, Gary and Saul, in the 4 o'clock hour. Always a delight for me. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Tomorrow, I think Rachel's got the 3 o'clock hour, and I think Billy Gilman leads it off. Superstar musician Billy Gilman back in the house at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Thank our friends over at Deepwater Winds earlier this afternoon, friends at Commerce RI. Saul, as always, thank you, and we'll see you back tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.